I'm with Dina Hashem, everybody. Welcome to Walk-Ins. Welcome. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you about all things, but mostly comedy. I'm just excited to hear about how you ended up in comedy. Are you still at The Daily Show too?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about how you ended up in comedy. I'm always so fascinated with anyone who's like, you know what? I'm going to be a comedian.
I don't know. Like, I honestly say this all the time. Like, I talk about it in my special where I'm like, I feel like it's clear to everyone I don't belong here. I know I don't belong here. Like, I'm not I feel like I belong in comedy, but I was never a performer. Like I always had I never raised my hand in class. I never spoke up. Like it's actually insane. Like people who knew me then are like, that's insane that you do this. But basically I got into it because I tried out for a contest in college and I won. And I was like, oh, now I'm addicted to this. So I guess I'm going to keep doing it. But I never aspired to be a performer or a comedian in any way. Like I know most of my friends are like, they always wanted to be a comedian. I'm like, that's really weird. Like, I don't even like watching stand up. Like, I don't even like it. So
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in central New Jersey.
Okay. And where'd you go to college?
Rutgers. I've been in Jersey my whole life. And I started comedy there because the main club in New Jersey happened to be in the Rutgers campus, the Stress Factory. So it just worked out well that I immediately had a place to just do open mics for my first couple of years. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to move closer to the city. And then just have been here ever since. So yeah.
And how long have you been doing it?
That contest was at the end of 2010, I guess. And then
Wow.
so I guess that long. Yeah.
That's crazy. And now what do you think? What did you do during the pandemic? Like, how long is it your way of making a living primarily? How long has it been have you been providing for yourself with it?
I mean, I guess, well, I got my first writing job actually during the pandemic. And then I guess previous to that, I was able to save enough money that I wasn't working a day job. Oh no, I was working a day job up until I got that writing job during the pandemic. So in a way, the pandemic was great for me. I was like, oh my God, I finally got a job that I've wanted this entire time. But I mean, just psychologically, it was difficult mostly because it's like, this is it made me realize how much of my identity stand up is. Cause without it,
Right.
I was like, who am I? What am I doing on this earth? It was that was the most difficult part of it. And then the Zoom shows were like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I have to just because it's who I am.
Did you
Um,
do the rooftop shows Sam put on?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
went to a lot of those with him. We had some fun shows because, obviously Sam is the same way where he's like, I have to do this no matter what. So we would do these it almost felt like being a young comedian again because we would do these shows in Connecticut, literally on a highway, trucks just going by. But it was fun.
Yeah. It's funny, I interviewed him in 2021 right as things started opening up again, and for some reason, that interview is every time I get in my car, it just play no matter what I do, it will not get away from this interview that I did with him, and so I've, surrendered to just listening to it, which I very rarely even listen to my podcast at all, and I think we've really forgotten how insane that time was. This was when he was promoting his documentary that he was doing about everything opening back up. And just listening to it now, I was like, oh my God, we really like the plexiglass and all the 30 people, 30% capacity allowed.
All of the little psychological things, we'll put a condom on the microphone and that way we won't get COVID from each other. It's like, what? We're getting it. It's like, guys, yeah, it's bizarre how it's almost like that never happened and yet it was so insane.
Yeah, it was so insane. So I was just talking to who was it? There was a comedian who was recently on. I can't remember. Interviewed so many comedians recently. They were just talking about how everybody when we came out of it, even though everybody was traumatized, particularly people who are single and living alone, they really struggled. They just nobody wanted to talk about it. Not the late night shows, not everybody wanted to just be like, all right, we're moving on. And people were like, wait, we just went through this huge crazy thing. And That's why listening to this like episode that refuses to stop playing in my car, and then I watched the documentary again that he had made, and I was like, this was I really feel like everyone has just collectively forgotten how insane and stupid some of this stuff was. It was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
saying like he felt like a new comic having to like crawl up on a roof and do comedy.
It was
It was
refreshing in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny watching a lot of I mean, I really was watching a lot of my friends lose their minds online. I was like, "So this is
I
what happens when comedians can't get on stage."
I started a podcast. That's how much I lost my mind. I was like, I guess I have to finally start a podcast. And I would literally just, I couldn't like sit still. I did it alone and I couldn't sit still. I was staying at my mother's house and I didn't want to do it in front of her. So I would just walk around my childhood neighborhood recording, and I would do zero editing. I would like edit on the fly as I was talking. Like if I said something I didn't want to say, I would like on my phone edit it out and then just keep talking. And then I would just put it out. And as soon as like the Comedy Cellar opened, I stopped.
Yeah. Is it still up, or did you just take the whole thing down?
I took it all down, but sometimes people reach out to me like, I want to re-listen, and I just send them the archive. But so you could
Oh.
DM me if you want the pod, but it's not out publicly.
What were you talking about?
Just my thoughts. I was just kind of rambling. Like
That's
people liked it.
amazing.
Like I think if I had kept it going, like I kind of regret not keeping it going because I think it could be maybe it's some sort of thing now, or at least an additional source of income. But I found it so hard. Like I don't know how you do it. I found it was so much anxiety knowing every week I had to create 2 episodes. It was like it became like homework almost. Like I felt this pressure of
Mm.
like needing to create something literally every week. I don't know if you feel that way.
I mean, yes and no. I love interviewing people. It's something I didn't know that I loved until I started. So this podcast I started in 2018, I want to say, or 19, and I didn't know that I knew I loved talking to people. I'm like Irish, so I have that weird gift of gab, and just like I'm like I used to date this guy, and he'd be like, "Why do you have to fucking talk to everybody? Like no one cares what the person who's taking your groceries out, like what her day is like." I'm like, I just am curious about where people came from. And there was a lot of talk about like victimhood and the victimhood narrative and this and everybody's talking about victimhood, but it became this was kind of like right when the IDW, the intellectual dark web, was kind of like rising, and everybody was like the victimhood. And I was like, well, I want to talk to people about what they've overcome and how they got there, instead of just this circular conversation about like victimhood that still ends up being about victimhood. And so I started that just to start talking to people. So I love, like, I actually wish I could do it like Rogan, like 5 days a week. I would love to sit down with if I had a studio and resources, I would definitely interview people every day and just get to know them. So that doesn't feel so stressful to me. What feels stressful to me, and what I'm very bad at, is that you have to like feed the algorithm constantly. So in order to even there's so much content, as you know, and
Yeah.
so many people are doing this, and the market is so just like oversaturated in general.
Yeah.
You've got to like be putting out clips and putting out, and I'm not that I find that very stressful, and I'm very bad at it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I've almost basically like like stand up now is so much of just like cracking the algorithm and having a
Yeah.
constant bank of content to put out. And I'm like, that's not how my brain works. I'm like, I can't think like that. So in a way, like these apps tricked us into putting our entire careers on them. And now it's like, oh, you still
Yeah.
want your career? You better keep fucking posting. And I'm like, well, then I guess my career's gone, because like I took a month-long break from posting on Instagram like a year ago, and it's never been the same. I've never gotten the same reach that I did back then. And I'm like, oh, they just stole my career from me because
They
because they're
got
mad at
mad.
me.
They're like, "Nice
Yeah,
career, Dina. It would be a shame if something happened to it. Keep posting."
literally.
Yeah, we have this joke on so the other podcast I started, Dumpster Fire, I felt like people were missing my tone that I often tweet in, which is weird because sometimes I'll be legitimately like, "Oh, this is really disturbing," and I'll be upset, somewhat upset. Sometimes, like, I find watching Biden very upsetting. It like hurts my heart and soul, and I'll get really mad about something like that. But for the most part, it was always in this like it was almost like I grew up on the Daily Show. So, cuz I'm 45, so I grew up in like the John Stewart. He was like he got me through 9/11. So, I was I it was like almost a parody of a parody news show. It wasn't even
Mhm.
supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be almost making fun of a like a double irony. And people were misreading it, so I started Dumpster Fire in my garage, and I stopped doing stand-up as much because I started making money online, and I was like, I only have so much time, and I have to figure I would rather build this audience online right now than offline, and there are other reasons too. And then, the pandemic happened. So I was actually kind of set up already when like, I was like, "Sweet,
Wow.
we already have a show in our garage."
That's great timing. That's amazing, actually.
It was lucky timing, and then but Dumpster Fire is one of those shows that takes the most time, and it's the most labor intensive and the most expensive for me to produce, and it's chasing the news cycle, which, as you know, as someone who writes for The Daily Show, can be not only exhausting but demoralizing. Like my you because
Yeah.
you have to pay attention even when you don't wanna
Y
pay attention.
Totally, and, like and you're doing it all yourself. I mean, I imagine you have a team, but, like, that's
It's not
yeah,
a gr I
that's,
mean, it's
like
not a
we
big
have
team.
a
They're like
yeah.
yeah. You're like a
Yeah.
professional.
I mean, we have a billion people, and it's still, like, really insane that we do it, so, like, I can't imagine what it's like with a
How long
small
have you
team. It's
been
super
there?
impressive. Not that long, since last January,
Mm,
so I guess it's, like, a year and a half now, but then
and
there
how
was
do
the
you
strike.
Oh, that's right, fuck. How did you get the job? Did you submit a packet?
Yep, packet.
Yep.
Yeah, I was like, it happened so fast, it was so unexpected, they asked me to submit one, and I did, and I had an interview, and it was just like that. I was like, "Oh my god, it's amazing." Yeah.
And do you go into work? Do you have to, like, go in? Do you guys all have are you in a writer's room and stuff?
Yeah, it's partially remote, but we do go into the office a lot, yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Do you love it?
Yeah. I do, like, it's, like, the perfect format for how my brain works. Because like, I've had writing jobs for, like, narrative TV shows where it's basically, like, you're all in a room together and you just talk all day long, and I'm like, "I'm a writer, not a talker." Like, I
Right.
like talking, but, like, I for me, writing is about writing, like, I wanna sit down and write. So, I found those environments, like, difficult and, like, tiring, but, like, with this, it's like we have one big meeting, we, like, talk about the content, and then we're just, like, at our computers most of the day, like, writing jokes, and that's what I love to do, so it's like yeah, I really love it.
Mm. And do you have is it like, I guess it is daily still, right? I don't even know. Is it still a daily show? Oh, wow.
Yeah, so John hosts on Mondays, and then the rest of the correspondents host the rest of the week.
Is he on Thursdays too? Or does he just pop in
No,
on Thursdays?
no, that was because it was the debate. He did a live show for the debate, but,
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
yeah, but he usually just hosts Mondays, and then but then we have a lot, we'll be at the RNC next week and then the DNC in August, so those will be
Oh,
a slightly different schedule.
I'm excited to announce a new partnership we have with a company I love, Caliber, a strength training and nutrition coaching program that's completely personalized to you. So I've been using this now for about a month, and through their app, you get paired with a personal trainer, an actual person, and not an AI bot, on a fitness program and nutrition plan completely customized to your goals, whether it's muscle building, weight loss, ditching the dad bod, or the mom bod in my case. For much less than it costs to work with a personal trainer at the gym. She's awesome. She's so responsive. That's the thing that I love about this. It's actually been life changing for me. The app is incredible. It has videos that show you how to do all the workouts And you can actually reach out to your coach if you have any questions and send them videos of you doing the workout so they can give you form feedback. Caliber takes a science-based approach, which leads to faster, more sustainable results. Even doing this for a month, I can see myself getting stronger. We've arranged a special deal for our Walk-ins Welcome audience where you get $100 off the first 3 months. It's a really good rate, you guys, for what you're getting. And you get a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not happy with the program. Go to caliberstrong.com/walk-ins or click the link below to get signed up. You've all heard me screaming women for years now, and I'm a big advocate for women in general and women's health in particular. That's why I love Quest's line of medical tests specifically focused on women's health issues. They offer a basic women's health profile test that gives you a snapshot of your current health and wellness, women's hormone tests designed to identify imbalances associated with various health conditions, and specific tests for fertility, thyroid function, and even your menopause stage. You can take a perimenopausal test to help you determine if you're entering perimenopause, an early menopausal panel, and a postmenopause panel. I know you'll see Instagram jokes like, oh, if you know the lyrics to this song, you might be in perimenopause. And you'll laugh and go, haha, I probably am in perimenopause. But are you? You want the actual data. This is all such important knowledge for women to have because it can affect the way you work out. It can affect what you should be eating. And just now they're starting to really realize how much all of these hormones play into us losing weight, keeping bone density. All of this information is so important to you. Your results are delivered online quickly and discreetly, and you get all of this information without a doctor's visit. Ladies, prioritize your health and use the affiliate link below to get 25% off and find answers to the multitude of health questions you may have. Just click the link below and the discount is automatically applied. Are you political? Like, is it something that did you grow up in a house that was political? Did you like, is this your background?
Sort of, in that, like, I've always been interested in, like, well, I guess I've always been interested in, like, as obnoxious as this sounds, the truth. Like, I studied, like, but no, like, I studied philosophy. I'm always just like, I want to know what's going on. I guess because I grew up in such a religious household, it was really important to me to figure out what I believed in because I didn't agree with the beliefs that were being instilled in me. So I was like, I don't want to go to hell though. So I need to figure out what's going on. I was like, I just always like, I want to know what reality is, what's real. And so part of that is figuring out what the government is doing and what they're not telling us and like how the world really works. And so I've always just been interested in like, you know, stuff like that, like devil's chessboard type stuff of like, oh my God, all the secret like CIA stuff that's actually going on that we don't hear about. Like I've always been super interested in that kind of thing. But it certainly didn't come from my family. We never talked about anything important or, I mean, like I didn't have talk to them about anything really. So it was always just from my own like curiosity of like trying to understand the world.
Yeah. And what did you get your degree in?
English and philosophy with a minor in Japanese. So just completely useless.
And what religion, for people who haven't watched your special yet or seen any of your stuff, what religion were you raised with?
Oh yes, I forgot. Islam. I grew up in a Muslim family.
Okay. I was raised Catholic. Yeah.
Like strictly, it was like a big deal.
It wasn't until my parents got divorced.
Oh, that's nice.
It's like, no more. Can't really tell the kids to take that seriously anymore. And yeah, it was. I mean, I went to like private Catholic schools when I was little, and yeah, so it was definitely like it's in there. You know, it's in my brain. It's somewhere like I think Bill Burr has this bit about how when you're little, they just squeeze that religion into your brain like jelly into a donut, and you don't. It's like I've always had so much like weird guilt around sex and shame, and I'm like, I know this is from stuff that got put in my brain before I could even think.
I totally agree with that. It's like in there. I was just having this conversation with somebody, like even though I don't subscribe really to like any strict set of particular beliefs, I when I sometimes I'll in the past I've done like acid and stuff, and like the most like clear feeling I feel is the desire to be grateful to something. And like almost this feeling
Mm,
of like I wish I believed in a God so I could be thankful to them because I'm so grateful right now for this miracle of life. It's like such a profound feeling of wanting to like submit or to thank something. And it's like, and that must come from the way I grew up. I mean, literally Islam is submission. It's like that's the meaning of it. So
mm.
like I'm like, yeah, it's in there.
It's interesting too because I used to get that, like, on mushrooms, and I wonder if it's I don't even know how to separate how much of that is from what we were raised with that, like, "Oh, there is this God." Is that something that was already in there, or is it something that's, like, in our DNA? Because there also does seem to be this, like, God gene that has to be filled even if you're not religious. People will kind of make veganism their religion, whatever, like that. What it seems
Yeah,
like there is this thing that needs to constantly be filled. And even just
totally.
seeing, like, yeah, it's weird. I wonder, I think about this a lot. Like, is it, can we get outside of that need to, like, worship something?
I think about it too. It's such an interesting question. I really want an answer to that, but I don't know. Like, also when I'm like tripping, I'm like, is this all purely from my brain or am I accessing something that's out there? It's like that phenomenological
Mhm.
question of like, what's in here and what am I channeling that's out there? But yeah, the fact that I think about how like how quickly we are like how short our attention spans now and how we like move on for things so quickly. It really puts into perspective how incredible it is that religion has lasted for as long as it has and has been, even though it's like less relevant now than it used to be. The longevity of its existence is like nothing else, right?
I wonder if it will survive the short attention spans. You know, like, if it will last through, like, what you're saying, or maybe we just had more time or something to engage in wonder. Having a child has re-engaged this part of me that I've felt very disconnected from, in a way that it's like she's so obsessed with the stars and the planets and the universe and all this stuff, and then because she is, you start reading about it again like when you were a kid, and you're like, what the fuck, like, how is it, how how does any of
Yeah.
this, like, I'm worried about what someone thinks about me, and we're on this stupid crazy rock in space. It is ridiculous. It's so, I always talk to Joe List about this too, what you're just saying, like, is this my brain or is this something, because he and I love Sam Harris, the meditations, but I'll text him randomly like, "Look for what is looking, you motherfucker." Like, Sam Harris always he has these meditations that are like, um, look for what is looking, it's like, look for that witness.
Uh-huh.
It, like, hurts my brain when I'm like, I don't think you should feel this way when you're meditating, which is like my
Right.
brain's gonna explode. But that's what that reminds me of. Is this just, is this something I'll just let, as Sam Harris would say, just like an experience of consciousness?
Right. Like it's yeah, it's unfair that like we still can't figure out what consciousness is. Like will we
I
like
know.
it seems like we should have that answer. Can the AI tell us? Like what is a thought made out of? Like when I'm thinking my voice in my head, what is that? Like is that something
Yeah.
physical, the voice in my head? What is that?
But don't you find too, as a writer and a comedian, that there's always another voice?
And
Like
like an uncontrollable one?
yeah, like some voice that's that's narrating the voice of your experience. I've never, it's always like the first time I ever got on stage, I was like, "Oh my god, that motherfucker is finally quiet." Like that voice in my head that's just snarky, kind of
Oh
making fun of the
yeah.
world, making jokes at completely inappropriate times, finding dark humor in situations that probably should, it's like too soon to even be joking about things. That voice finally was silent, and I was like, she has a place, but I don't
Like
know,
while you're
maybe.
on stage, you mean? while you're on stage, it's like
When I
that's
was
not
on
there.
stage, that voice is quiet.
Yeah,
And I've learned
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
too,
yeah.
just like if I'm thinking, I should be talking. If I'm thinking, I should be articulating whatever I'm thinking because it means my brain's picking something up about the crowd or about whatever's happening in that
Mm,
experience, and I'm not connected to what I'm saying. So that
yes.
was a lesson I had like pretty early in comedy was just say what I'm thinking because it means I'm picking something up, but I no matter what, I'm not connecting to whatever is coming out of my mouth.
That took me a long time actually to figure out because I would still be so self-conscious on stage where like even if I was doing well, the voice would be like, "Oh my god, this is going well." And then I would realize it's going well and then it would fuck everything up. So like it actually took me a long time to do what you're talking about of like blending what's coming here and what's happening here. Like
It's
that was like actually a tough lesson for me. So that's cool that you picked it up so early. Yeah.
it's still hard to practice though because you wanna I took a break from comedy and have been back again for like, oh, not even a year yet, like 9 months, but I was doing it for like 10 years before I took a break. So there's still like muscle memory in terms of that skill, but I mean, it's like going to the gym. I can't be like, I used to work out 3 years ago. So it does still feel like that muscle is I still get so nervous before every show and always have.
Really?
Always,
Oh,
like, since
yeah.
forever.
See, I don't get nervous anymore, but like I think it's only because I care like I care the least about stand up that I ever have right now. So but it helped like caring less about it. I talked about this on another podcast. I like caring less about it made me a better comedian because I really treated it like homework. Like I treated it like school. Like I was always a good student and I was like for most of my stand-up career I was like I have to do this the right way. I have to write proper jokes. I have to like do this the right way and I took it so seriously. I would see other people on stage having fun. I'd be like what are they doing? It's not about fun. This isn't about fun. Like I would be like well, that they're weird. And
Yeah,
so it like only once I started like loosening up and treating it like, oh yeah, we're clowns. I'm a clown. Like this
we're
is not
clowns.
important. I'm a clown. Once I like accepted how stupid what we do is, I was able to like learn all those lessons that you're talking about and just like let it flow and not be nervous. Unless it's like an important thing, but like yeah.
Yeah, I still get so nervous. It's a it I mean, some shows not as nervous, but I still get even if it's like a small show for 20 people, I'll get like a little bit of stage fright. Just it's like I don't know. I put pressure on myself to because I've accepted that I'm a clown, so then I'm like, "Well, what if I fail as like my one job is to give these people relief and make them laugh, and what if I fucking suck at that too?" Like,
Well,
I don't know.
that's a good instinct. I mean, that makes you better too, like actually like caring and wanting them
I don't
to
know. I feel like it gets so much in my way, the nerves, the fear gets and I think an audience can smell fear even if it's like
oh
nerves
yeah,
and they can sense
totally.
they wanna feel like you're in control of the situation, and even if you get on with, like, a little bit of stage fright, which I think I started doing comedy when I was drinking and then got sober doing comedy and then realized I had stage fright. So I didn't know I had stage fright for, like, the first 5 years of
Wow.
doing comedy
That's
because
so
I was always just
interesting.
drunk and had, like, liquid courage. I had the confidence
Well,
of a fucking open micer on Kill Tony. Like, I was just
that's so funny, and it's impressive that it hasn't driven you back to drinking because 'cause you're like, "Well, I wanted to not be nervous anymore," so
I
wow.
don't know. It's good that I remember early on in comedy going into a green room and a comedian was sleeping, and I feel like I'm like, "I want that level of not giving a fuck about this."
I think you can get there, like, it's a good feeling, like, I feel like I'm that sleeping comedian now, but I used to be like that, where I was just, like, constantly nervous, so it's possible you could get there.
Why don't you feel like you care about it as much anymore? Or, I mean,
I'm
you do care, but
I care in that, like, I still, like, love doing it and still wanna do it, but I guess just seeing how much it has changed, like, the landscape of the entertainment business and, like, what it means to do stand-up and how to succeed at it, I guess I've, like my disdain is so high that I'm like, I don't know, I'm just like, if that's what's required, then it's probably not for me, which means I could just have fun. So I don't know. It's a weird thing to like address of like it has honestly, it's a lot to do with the content and algorithm stuff I was talking about, where it's like I don't think I'm capable of doing all that, and it's like I hate that it's part of it, and it makes me think like, oh, this is just like it's not art or whatever, as obnoxious as it is to say
Right.
something like that. Where I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I guess whatever's I don't know. I see it as a lesser thing than I used to, but as a result, I have more fun with it.
That's awesome. I think somebody asked me the other day. Oh no, it wasn't somebody. It was my husband. He was like, "Why are you doing this?" I'm like, "Some rando." He asked me. He asked me why I was doing it, and I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "Well, what do you want to get out of it?" I'm like, "Nothing." Literally, he's like, "I don't understand this. Like, for the love of the game shit, Bridget." Like the nerves and then just doing it with like no goal in mind. I'm like, I'd be totally happy being an opener for like the rest of my life. I have no
Right.
I have no desire to like make a special or was that your first special that you did?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how were you happy with how it came out, and who produced it?
Sam did. Sam Morrell. Um
Okay.
uh, I well, I guess I
Did
my
he
big
direct it too?
no,
Sorry to
James Webb.
interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
James Webb directed it. He does a bunch of stuff, specials now. I was not happy with how nervous I was in it, because like the way we're talking now about how like, oh, I have fun and like I don't care as much, that does not come across in the special. Like I look nervous, like I feel I was nervous. Like even I did Marin's podcast, and like the first thing he said was like that I don't know if that was a choice, that delivery or whatever. I was like, "Oh my, you fucking read me." Like he just read me immediately. Like, yeah, I was nervous and you could see it, and I hate that. So like if I could do it again, I would bring this like new energy that I have, an attitude that I have toward it, and I think it would have been a way better special. But like I mean, I stand behind the jokes, like all that material is like stuff that I've had banked forever. It's like, well, it's like a lot of my career just wrapped up in one thing, which is cool. But it's really just like the energy and delivery of it that I like really bothers
Did
me.
you do
But
more than one show, or did you only do one show?
I did 2 in one night.
Okay.
And in my head, the first one, I was like, "Oh my god, I was so nervous. This next one has to be the right one." And then I ended up using most of the footage from the second show, even though the crowd was not as good. That was a stupid decision too. Like the crowd was way better in the first show, but in my head, I was like, "But I was better on the second one because I felt less nervous." But ultimately, the differences between my performance are so minute. I was the only one who probably noticed it, so that was a stupid decision. Um,
Uh, I
but
hate
yeah.
looking at myself doing stand-up.
That's the number one reason not to do a special. I had to watch myself so many times during editing where it made me sick. Like it made at one point I had to tell my editor, like, I don't care anymore. I don't care. Just do it. I don't care what
Yeah.
I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, I can listen for some reason, like listening, and maybe it's just being a female and being hard on like, oh, this aspect and that and whatever. Just I don't know.
Oh, I was so crazy with James. I felt so bad for James. We like every single angle. I was like, that's not a good angle. Switch it out for another angle. Like every frame of the special, I was examining every fucking angle. Like, nope, not that one. Like, but I think he understands the female in the biz experience. So
Are you tired of wading through media misinformation, trying to figure out a news outlet's spin or bias on any given story? Ground News is the solution you didn't know you needed. Ground News is the most complete news comparison app. It lets you make sense of the news on your own terms by letting you easily compare how a story is covered by different sources across the political spectrum and around the world. Compare any news article you want, filtering it by bias, left, right, or center, by location, so you can understand how news is being covered around the world, and by time, knowing when the story was first reported and how the reporting has changed. I'm obsessed with these guys. I love their blind spot report because you don't think you have blind spots, and then you see this report and you're like, oh, yeah, I had no idea that even happened. Start seeing the news more clearly, find out the truth, and stay up to date with what's going on in the world with the Ground News app. Use our affiliate link below to get 15% off. That's Ground News. Use the link below to get 15% off. Walk-Ins Welcome is brought to you by Phetasy Productions. We are no longer on a network. We are completely independent. If you love this show and you love what we do, we are asking more now than ever before for you to join us in our community at Phetasy.com. Become a paid supporter and help support the podcast that you love. Being that we are independent means we're taking all of the expenses back, and that means that we need our listeners to support us. If you're also listening and you have a product and you want to advertise with us, please email me at phetasy@gmail.com. We're hoping that we leap and the net will appear. Please become a paid supporter at Phetasy.com and help us stitch our net together. Thank you. Men don't see things the same way. This is something I've learned from having to light. Whenever, like, it was funny. I had someone here helping me do the lighting. A guy here helping me do the lighting for Dumpster Fire in our media room because we just shoot it in my house. And Whitney was here, and she was like, no, the light needs, she's like, man, like trying to, she was like, no, the camera needs to shoot down. The guys always want to shoot up, and like, it needs to be blown out more. You need it to be stopped. She was like, oh my God. Thank God she was here though. I was like, thank God you're here, because I need a female gaze to help me, because men just don't. I was like, oh God, I look horrible. And he's like, you look fine. I'm like, no,
oh my God, that was the exact, like, God bless James. He's amazing. And like, I don't fault him for this at all, but like when we were setting up the cameras in the room, I was like shocked with some of the decisions, not because artistically, just because literally, because as a woman and like facial angles, I wish we had a shot of the cameras set up in the room the final way, because we literally put them on tables so that they were higher up, and like, and he was so accommodating. He's like, well, I'll get on stilts if you want me to, like, whatever, like, but yeah, that stuff is important. I'm sorry, it is.
I've learned to ask too when I go do podcasts. I was going to go do this podcast, and I'm like, I better ask them to send me a shot, like what the shot looks like, because they were in town and had set up like a set at an Airbnb, and they sent me a shot, and I'm like, thank God I didn't wear a skirt, because it's like right up your leg. I was like, oh my God, men and their freaking camera angles. Like,
yeah, it doesn't cross their mind. Yeah,
no, it doesn't have to either.
Yeah.
It's so wild. That was something that it's just, I have a very hard time. I have a very hard time with it. I totally agree with you too about the industry changing, watching it. Now it's all like, what is it, like crowd work clips?
Yeah. And like, I get the genesis of it, because it was like survival. It was like, we need to promote ourselves, but we don't want to burn material. So here's this great solution. So like, I completely understand it.
Totally.
But now I think it just actually changed the way audiences consume stand-up, where that's what they want now. So
yeah. They think they're helping by talking to you. So somebody was on the podcast talking about that, how it's like completely changed. Blair Soki was talking about how it was like audiences now think that they're helping by giving you these like moments to have. She's like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
She's very similar.
I mean, I honestly enjoy it. Like, I don't like fault, like, if good crowd work is good, and I actually like doing
Sam's
it. It's
amazing
fun.
at it.
Yeah, and it is like a really handy tool. Like, if like, I mean, especially if you have like specific material, like there are some crowds that do not want to hear me make jokes about growing my Muslim trauma. There are just crowds that do not care. But like, if that's my material, then it is handy to just be able to dip into like, okay, let's talk about you fucking morons. And like, they like that. And it's just, it is a really handy tool. So
It's a skill.
I like it. Yeah. Yeah, no, I do like it. It's just it's more so needing to constantly be doing it specifically for the purpose of content. That's the part of it that I don't like. And it feels not organic and natural when like if I have to go and like know that like I have to do this so that I can get a clip, like it takes the joy out of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a meeting recently with these guys who were recommended to us. They're like my friend's from Senegal and she works with these like hot shit young guys who do feeding the algorithm stuff. Cause we have this ongoing joke on Dumpster Fire, like we must feed the algorithm and we're terrible at it. And so we meet with this kid, he's like a Zoomer, and we were on this Zoom with him. And Maggie and I still joke about the look on his face when he realized, like, he's like, what's your strategy? What's your content strategy? What's your schedule? What's your calendar? Like, what's your brand strategy? Do you use, what was the term he used? Like, best practice and CT, all these, I was like, huh? And he was like
Yeah.
looking at us like, how are these idiots still in business? The look on
So
his face.
that's what I wonder. Like, are there people out there who actually know how to like crack the algorithm and can I pay them? Because like
You can.
I really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, on YouTube for sure. For absolutely, especially YouTube. There are people who are like, yes, these people exist. I am happy to introduce you to anyone I know. If you have the means, they're generally not cheap. We can't afford to pay the people that I wish I could
Oh, then never
pay.
mind. Yeah, no, I'm sure I can't afford it either. But
But yeah, there are teams like depending on how yeah, they're good at like they know exact. I got this whole sheet that was like, here's what I've learned from all of my years of doing this. The thing is, I was talking to my friends about it. They're also like Gen X like me, and they're like, yeah, Bridget, because we still see things as art, and they see everything as like you're a brand and this is content and you need a strategy.
yes. So like it introduces like back the unfairness into the landscape where like the entertainment business used to be like there's all these biases, there's like nepotism, there's like, you know, obviously gatekeepers, like that set of like injustices. And then the internet came and it's like, oh, now it's so democratic. If you just put out your things, you can get people to come find you and like you don't need these gatekeepers. And like that's really amazing. But then because these algorithms became so important, it introduced back into like, oh, if you are rich and you have the means, then you can get ahead on the internet because you can afford to pay these people who will get you ahead. And it's not about if you're better, it's just about if you have more money. So it's like, yeah, it just, I don't know. There was like a moment where the internet was amazing and
Yeah.
like you could just be skilled and get your stuff out there. And like, but I feel like we're like sort of past that. I don't know. I mean, obviously you could
Oh, we're
still
way past that.
succeed. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's not it's definitely, and by the way, that is a skill. Like when I see the way that they're like, "Oh, you need to," cuz they were just giving us examples of what these little shorts should look like because I'm just bad at we put out so much content and it's just in the wrong format. Even our show Dumpster Fire when we were doing it for years like a show on YouTube and someone's like, "Why are you doing this like it's on HBO? You're on YouTube." And so we had like opening credits and we had closing credit. It was like a show,
Yeah.
thanking people who worked on it. And it was like, get rid of all of it, get right into it. People want to feel like they're jumping into a conversation. They don't want to have any, even more and more. It's like cut out all the fat. And then these shorts that you see everywhere because TikTok then came along and really changed the game, and
Mhm.
now Instagram and YouTube and everybody are competing for the like shorts that turn your brain into pudding, and it's truly the only way to kind of compete and grow an audience, and
Mhm.
there is an art to those too. It's like crazy. They'll be like, if you zoom in here, you got to keep their attention. If you change the tone and add a music, and if you change the image, because the minute they want to look away, you've got to grab their attention. I'm like, this is fucking psycho. And then when they talk to you about like what goes into the titles and everything. It was like there's us versus. I'm like, this is why I resist this, because it's just emotionally manipulating people. You're
Yeah,
just
it's
like,
just marketing. It's just marketing, and it's like, yeah, we're not marketers. Like it's weird to have those skills when we're supposed to be creative artists. Like those two don't usually go together. It's those people who have both that are like the most successful. I feel they're business minded, they're good at
mm-hmm,
marketing, and they happen to be very funny or whatever the skill it is. Like
mm-hmm.
that's like the package.
Yeah, and you have to be, you can't just be a stand-up anymore. You have to be good at social media. You've got to be a cameraman. Everybody brings their freaking camera now to I'm like, how do you even know how to use one of these things? You have to be a
Well,
sound guy. You've
yeah.
got to know how to work lav mics. It's like you have to be a full content creator.
It's funny, like it used to be for like if you were like wanting to start featuring for a headline, or if you had a car, it was like you're good. But now it's like, do you have a camera? Do you know how to do audio? It's like now that's the features to look for in a good opener.
Yeah, are you good at production? Can you it's nuts. It's
Yeah.
such a different, yeah, really, even I feel like even in the past like 4 years it's so drastically changed in that direction of like everybody is, and then it's funny seeing like all the jokes about like when I see comedians get up and they're like, comedian destroys. Those are my favorite jokes that comedians do on stage now, where they'll make some dumb joke like about someone's shirt and they'll be like, comedian destroys
Oh yeah,
heckler's
yeah, yeah,
shirt,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and they'll just be
Yeah.
making fun of the whole trend. I'm hoping it's just a trend.
Well, it really depends on like what happens with social media and like the medium of like how to get your things out there. I'm always like, what's next after like Instagram and TikTok? Like, what's going to be? I can't. It's hard for me to imagine what the next thing is, or like what's after podcasts. Like, it's very hard for me to imagine what's after that. So,
It's
like,
virtual. It's
if
VR. I was just talking to
is it
Matt
though?
Edgar about
Because
this. Yes, because he was in VR world and there's like a whole community of people and they're all doing these things, and there's a comedy club in this virtual reality world that he went to visit and it was booked. He couldn't even get in. I'm like, this is fucking nuts, dude. He's like, you have to see it. I'm like, this is like Ready Player One.
So like I've heard that before, and I've like heard of people running in it, but it's not. You think it will become? I think it depends on like the VR gear itself becoming less unwieldy, because like right, none of it has taken off. Like there have been many iterations of the
Totally.
Oculus and like the Google stuff, but like you never see it like take on in a massive way, and I think it's just because it's so like inconvenient. So like, do you think there's going to be a point where like the VR like itself, like it'll just be like a pair of
Yeah.
regular glasses, it'll be really easy, and then everyone will just do that? You think that's it?
I do think that I don't wanna believe this, but when you ask me to try and envision what would be next, that's the only thing I can imagine. I mean, other than, like, just injecting the dopamine right into our arm, like, I don't I think that that would be the next iteration of this, and the price point obviously has to come down because right now it's just too expensive for the
Yeah.
average person, but look at how cheap batteries. I was just reading this whole thing about how powerful batteries are now and how cheap they are, and how it's like completely changed the entire world. The like battery technology and how good it's gotten. So I
Right,
think as the
interesting.
price comes down on this stuff and the real world gets increased, people are not good at interacting in person anymore. They're kind of losing that skill set.
Yeah, I guess amongst young people especially, right? Part of me thinks though that like there will always be the need to commune physically, and that's like the real power of like live performance and stand up. Like sometimes I'm like, this is so antiquated. I'm like a traveling joke salesman. Like I could be doing all of this on the internet. Like I could be doing all of it on the internet. I could be reaching more of my fans. I could probably make more money like if I do an online comedy show. Like all of my fans on the internet can come see it. Whereas if I go to like Alabama, it's like, it's like who are my fans there? I don't know. So like it is really odd on one level that we still like travel physically to do something that could so easily be done online. And yeah, I do think there's that desire for people to be like, let's go out tonight. Let's go see other
Totally.
human beings. And like, I almost feel like that's part of the popularity of crowd work. Like people do not talk to each other in public like as much anymore, clearly, like you just say. And I feel like the crowd work element of like a big group, it's like it's maybe one of the only ways you can actually go like hear what other people have to say, their opinions, or just like hear them talk in a public space. So like I think it is filling a void of community in a way. So
Mm. That's actually a really good faith interpretation of it. Because I was like, "Oh, it's just everybody is, is online and is used to espousing their opinions online and thinks that their opinions are everyone thinks their opinions are worth hearing, everywhere they go." So it's like they're
yeah.
my default, which is probably not accurate, is just that we're all a lot more narcissistic than we ever were probably in the history of mankind, because that is like the thing that the internet infects you with, is these false senses of outrage and self-importance and
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree with that. No, I completely agree with that. But I think it's a mix.
I think you're right.
I think it's a mix. I think it's mostly what you said, but there's a mix.
I used to be so that's the thing that's changed the most from my break was, and maybe it's from just interviewing so many people in that break. I used to kind of be terrified of the crowd, and in a way I just was like, I don't want to know what they're thinking. And now I'm like, I want to interview every person in the audience about how old they are. The generational stuff is so real. When I do comedy for some of these audiences in Austin, and they're mostly young people, I feel like people born in the 2000s. I feel like a fucking
Yeah.
boomer. Like they
Yeah.
don't it's really crazy that, and it's crazy how technology has kind of shortened the generational, like, it seems like the generational gaps are getting smaller just because as technology makes
Totally.
these jumps, I feel ancient when I get up there. I'm
Same.
45.
I'm 34 and I go up there. I'm like, I'm old. I talk about myself like I'm like 80 because that's how I feel. And like, I feel like people look at me weird, like you're calling yourself old, but you don't,
You're
I don't know.
34?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the other thing that I notice. I'll see like 30-year-olds. There's this one girl, she's like 27 and she talks about being a 90s. I'm like, "You are not a 90s kid." Like I'm a 90s kid. This is stolen valor. They'll talk about like being I'm like, "What are you talking about? You were born in the
Yeah.
2000s. This is crazy."
Yes. Yeah. Younger and younger people think they are older and older. That's
Yeah.
exactly what's happening.
Yeah,
It's like if you're not
it's
22,
very
you're out
weird.
of touch. Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
15. Like, 'cause and
Yeah.
again, I think this is, like, the TikTok phenomenon, because TikTok is this, like, young teen-driven app where I mean, you should hear my nephew. My nephew is hilarious, and he's, like, 15 and lives on TikTok, and he basically thinks I'm a 90-year-old. Like, he's just like the way he talks about people who are even, which I remember being 15 and feeling like a 30-year-old was old, like
Yeah.
that, but they think we're really old. Like, we might as well be running for president old.
Really? Oh my God, that's so dark.
Yeah.
That's
But I
so
think
dark.
people who spend a lot of time on those apps, which I don't, they end up kind of feeling older than they actually are because they're trying to keep up with all the, like, stupid lingo of the TikTok teens.
I like feel like I have to, especially for work, just like for
Mm,
me, like posting on the internet, like meme stuff. I'm like, I wish we just had someone whose job it was to like every day create a list of the viral memes or like the new formats. Cause like I don't know how to even find it. I'm barely on
yeah.
TikTok, so like I don't even know how to find these things. It seems like it's so easy to feel like everyone know. It feels like high school. It's like, what are you talking? Like everyone's talking about something and you don't know what it is, and like it just always feels that way. So like I wish I had like a 15-year-old, like just to tell me, like, here's the things. so
I
that I don't
mean,
have
you can hire my nephew.
maybe
He'd be great resource for you.
just a list. I just want to list every day. Here are the memes that went viral today, or whatever the fuck. Yeah.
I wonder what will have, like, longevity, though, from this generation. You know, what stands the test of time and the
All the time, I'm like, I feel like this will be called the disposable generation. It's like everything is disposable. The
mm.
content, everything is just like what's hot right now. Like the fucking Hawk Tuah girl is the best example. Like literally, she went from one meme to being signed with UTA, and like next week no one will remember she existed. And it's just like disposable. It's like what can we cash in on immediately? And then once people are bored, what's the next thing? And it's so like I don't think much will stand the test of time. I really don't know. And like there's no like physical media to like even like last physically. It's just like it's whatever the internet will choose to show you again. Like what will their algorithm choose that will stand the test of time to show you again? Like I don't know.
My husband was cracking me up because we were having this conversation about attention span and now having a child and having to like deal with just all of this is another thing we never really had to consider. And I was like, yeah, but people listen to 3 hour long I'm like, Rogan's the biggest podcast in the world. He's like, Bridget, no one's sitting down, like putting their phone, turning on Rogan and being like, yes, I agree. And only listening to that. He's like, this is all background noise. Like, no,
Right.
this is all stuff people are doing while they're working out, while they're driving, while they're cleaning. Nobody's like sitting down and focusing on a 3 hour long podcast. And I was like, oh, that's a really good point.
That's true, but it's so funny because that is how I watch podcasts. Like it's the one I'll sit down and I'll watch it. Like I'm not multitasking.
That's
So
how
like
I watch them. That's why I can't really take them in because I want to watch. And I'm also that annoying person when I'm watching a show. Like if I miss one line, I need to go back.
same, me too. But like that's what is required to like learn and like absorb information. It's so odd that we treat it like I mean, there's so many studies that multitasking isn't real. Like if you like
Yeah.
listen to a podcast while you're doing something else, you're probably not going to be able to say anything that you just listened to. So like it's like a wasted effort to do that.
This has been one of our we have like all these categories on Dumpster Fire that we just always come back to, and our newest one is Gen Z discovers because been all these like viral memes of Gen Z discovering something that we all know has already existed. And the most fascinating one, this is kind of like this raw dogging, which is a word that should not have entered the freaking lexicon as easily as it did. And how everyone's like, oh, I'm raw dogging flights, and people being just so baffled by the fact that they have an internal monologue. Like this one girl was like, I didn't take my phone on a walk and I had all these thoughts. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys, because there's podcasts on and everything in the background constantly, like no one has to
Oh
hear
my
their own thoughts
god.
anymore.
That's so it's a thing. Let's say it's a challenge. Like I'm gonna go
Yeah.
outside without my AirPods,
Yeah.
and this is called raw dogging.
Well, raw dogging is going on an airplane and dudes
Oh,
are
that's
doing raw
that.
dogging. That's the airplane thing
Oh,
where you
okay.
like just stare at the
Yeah, I saw
map.
one of those. Right, right,
I'm
right.
like,
Okay.
you could read a book, like
Right.
you could just not use technology and read.
I think about it just see like in New York, like I've never felt as angry in New York as I have recently, where everybody is walking and on their phones on at the same time. And like I decide not to treat them as human. Like I push people out of the way if they're on their phone and like on stairs. It's like that's so main character syndrome. Like it's like it actually like really deeply bothers me that like they just do not consider that there's other people they're holding up foot traffic. They just don't even think about it. It's become totally normal. I feel crazy for being the only one that I'm like I'm not going to be on my phone if I'm walking. And it's also like you have zero curiosity about the people around you, about like your environment. Like are you
But
that
also,
like
yeah,
yeah.
go on, sorry.
No, please go ahead, go ahead.
Also, it just reminded me I was in a cab in New York years ago. This was maybe decades ago, and there was someone on their phone crossing the street, not looking up, and the cab driver was like, "All these people, do they not have any sense of like he was like, no sense of danger or self-preservation, like
Yeah.
aside from not being worried, like you're just not looking at your surroundings while you're walking around in a busy city.
It's part of the narcissism, though. They think like everyone else will part ways for them. Like
Yeah.
it's really a fascinating thing. Are you in New York? I forget.
No,
Oh no,
I'm
you're in
Austin.
you're in
I was
Austin.
in
Yeah,
LA,
yeah.
in Austin. My husband always jokes because I wasn't doing comedy. This is like the ultimate bait and switch. I wasn't doing comedy when we met, and then got together, got married, had a baby, and then moved here. And my friend Ariel was like, just get back on stage and see. Because she's like, you don't want it to like haunt you forever if you don't do it. And I did. And I thought I just thought I'd be like, oh, that was like my lesbian phase, but it wasn't. I was like, fuck, now I have to do this. And so now I'm doing comedy again. And he always jokes that I'm going to like move to New York and leave my family to pursue comedy.
But Austin is like a scene now. So it's like.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I have to balance it with being like a present wife and mom. You know, I'm like, I couldn't really. What's your biggest defect of character?
Whoa, wasn't prepared for that.
That's how I end every podcast.
Oh shit, defect of character? Oh my god. I am too passive, I guess. I feel like I've been carried by the waves of fate instead of actively taking part in it. I guess that's not really a defect. Huh?
I mean, it seems like the waves of fate have done, you've landed in a great, like, you seem like you're living your dream. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, no. I'm super grateful. It's a miracle, actually. So maybe that was not the right answer to your question then, because it's positive. It's not negative. I view it as negative, but I guess I had positive.
I just go with the flow too much.
Honestly, like, okay, I need a worse answer. I need to like actually shit. Like, I guess like I believe that I hold myself to a high standard, and so I hold other people to that standard. But I also I bend that standard sometimes, and like it's not fair that I hold other people to that standard that I don't always subscribe to either. If that makes sense.
Yeah. What's your biggest asset?
I try to be a principled person, and I'm honest. I'm honest as kind of always. I'm so bad at these questions. I'm so sorry.
No, I love your answers. There's no right or wrong answer. That's the beauty of these questions. It's kind of where you're, and when I have people on more than once, it's like the answers will change depending on where they are or what they're working on or what they're whatever,
Okay, cool. I hope I didn't disappoint.
No, not at all. This has been so fun. I just want everyone to know where to find your special and you, and obviously if you're watching The Daily Show, you'll see some of your jokes. Are you on camera there?
No.
But
you can see me on camera in my special Dark Little Whispers on Amazon Prime. And I'm on social media at Dina Hashem _.
Well, I am very grateful for your time. I'm glad I got to meet you and know you, and I hope we get to see each other in person and tell some jokes. I just imagine you with like a little rucksack traveling around telling jokes.
My bag of jokes. Yeah, I'll come to Austin sometime.
Yeah, come. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The check-in with Bridget and cousin Maggie can now be found at Phetasy.com. It's been titled Another Round with Bridget Phetasy, and it's now in video.
This has been Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.